Midnight drapes Acre's seawall in damp salt and moonwash as low surf breathes against stone. Below the Templar commandery, a barred door exhales torchlight into a slit of black water where steps descend to a room chiseled from bedrock. At its center waits an iron chest, seams tarred, ringed with rusted rivets, and beside it the rumor. Red leather ledgers stamped with 9 joined seals. The paradox is simple and jarring. Why would a warrior order bury banking books deeper than blades? Some believe the books tallied deposits from princes and pilgrims, while no coin ever clinked here. Withdrawals moved instead as tokens and wax-stamped tallies, a paper tied stronger than steel. Others argue the ledgers masked forbidden interest, renamed as offerings. Historians dispute whether fees or faith kept armies moving. Fringe researchers insist a clerk's margin, the great transfer to Cyprus, marks the night the numbers ran for the harbor. Scholars remain divided. Were debts a hidden chain or a shield? The hinges do not yield. The chest keeps its breath. The paper trail slides seaward. Who erased which names when the walls fell? Who owed what to whom when the pages fled? And what breaks first when the books go dark? Dust hangs in the rafters of a roadside hospice as mule bells fade. A cloaked traveler slides a heavy purse across a rough table and instead receives a folded letter creased beneath a Red Cross seal. The paradox unsettles everything. In a corridor patrolled by swords and tollmen, a thin scrap of parchment buys supper, a berth on a ferry, a guard through bandit country, while bright coin, clinking, can draw a blade. Historians dispute whether this Templar letter of credit was ordinary notarial craft or a calculated engine of control. Names, emblems, and a ciphered tally mark, turning speech into currency. Fringe theorists propose the 9 seals worked like a rotating key, a devotional arithmetic only certain countersigns could unlock. Some whisper that hostel keepers and ferrymen kept brief prayers as passwords, candlelit over signatures that patrols pretended not to read. Others maintain the trick was simple and ruthless. Deposit in the west, redeem in the east, seals and countersigns stitching a safe corridor where no coin changed hands. Meanwhile, some suggest no usury hidden fees, exchange gifts, conversion spreads, and late alms swelling quietly. Scholars remain divided, yet the stakes are stark. Whoever maps safe houses and redemption points decides who arrives, fed, armed on time. Paper outruns cavalry, only fleets catch it, and fleets demand tribute. Oars bite the green skin of the lagoon while gulls wheel over the Riva degli Schiavoni. Beneath a rising sun, a clerk lifts his voice, reading a contract to hollow-eyed crusaders as boatmen idle at their benches and the bronze lion watches. The paradox lands like a stone. A holy host signs for ships too numerous to fill, and the shortfall becomes a chain, debt that points their blades first at Christian Zara, then at glittering Constantinople. Some believe the pact was naive overreach, a miscount of men and grain. Others argue the tonnage was a snare, designed so arrears could be converted into orders. Fringe researchers insist a hidden schedule tied repayments to alternate targets, where cargo becomes provinces and arrears become walls to breach. Historians dispute motives. Chronicles call it dire necessity, while merchant ledgers read like collections notices with saints' days for deadlines. Scholars remain divided, yet the pattern is stark. Where fleets command the sea, couriers master the land, and codes govern couriers. By lamplight in a stone alcove, a wax seal splits with a clean sigh. Beneath the Templar cross lies a slender strip of vellum inked with neat columns of numbers and tiny saints' initials, its edges darkened by travel and oil. The paradox bites softly but deep. An order with no name survives, while the courier who bore it can vanish on the road. A cipher mirrors itself between houses, yet commands move as if spoken aloud. Some suggest these courier slips used paired ciphers, one half held in Acre, the twin in Champagne, to authenticate without signatures. Others claim the initials were feast day keys, a moving calendar that unlocked meaning only on designated nights. Fringe theorists propose duplicate seals and numeric countersigns created a lattice where capture changed nothing and timing meant everything. Scholars still debate whether this was mere notarial habit or a disciplined code that turned prayer lists into passwords, and chroniclers, eager for banners and sieges, barely whisper about the signaling engine that fed those spectacles. In a cold monastery scriptorium, candles puddle light over scraped parchment while a narrow column of figures marches down the page beneath a tranquil heading that reads alms, not interest. Beside it, a neat fee table lists custody, transfer, currency exchange, and a curious surcharge called a risk gift. The contradiction is unnerving. In a room sworn to poverty, profit hides in prayerful vocabulary and grows fat on piety. Some believe the relabeling obeyed canon law, coin converted to script, protection offerings assessed at every stop, late penalties rolled into penance that shaved the same percentage as any market rate. Others maintain the disguises were deliberate theater, a financial rite designed to bless what sermons banned. Fringe researchers insist the fee ladders synchronize with campaign calendars as if armies marched to the cadence of compound gifts. Historians dispute whether this was mere bookkeeping prudence or a covert banking system that turned vows into payment plans and crusades into revenue cycles. Scholars remain divided, the handwriting serene while margins swell. Profits rise like incense, until the books vanish and the smoke clears. Who first taught a fee to kneel like a prayer? Which war lengthened because a gift multiplied in the margins? When the ledgers fled, what debts dissolved and who erased the names? At first light, hinges splinter and boots spill into the cloister. Scribes hold scraps over coals to soften seals while wax smoke curls toward rafters. In the yard, horses stamp and breathe steam, saddles tight. The paradox arrives in silence. Arrests are loud, trials are public, but the numbers vanish trained to run. Some claim the ledgers were never whole, their entries divided among houses under alias patrons. Others contend pre-packed chests slid down to the river. Manifests swapped for grain tallies, boatmen paid to forget. Fringe theorists propose a decoy archive left for seizure, while true balances lived as ciphered abstracts, donations not donations at all. Scholars still debate a handful of parchments rumored to surface centuries later in private cabinets and maritime museums. Chroniclers thunder heresy. Notaries would call it erasure. Accountants, a closing entry writ in smoke. Without records, debts die. When debts die, creditors become prey. The order ends. The habit emigrates, to counting houses at sea, to ledgers stitched into hulls. Still the questions linger: who slipped the keys to the water? Dawn slicks the key in a pale sheen as stevedores shoulder bales of Flemish cloth from groaning hulls. Gulls carve the salt air and ledger boys chalk tallies on damp planks while no chest, no chain, no glitter of coin appears. The impossibility stands in plain sight. Ships unload fabric, not treasure, yet across mountains and deserts a balance settles as if gold had flown. Some believe the link is a paper bridge, bills of exchange shuttling between Genoa, Acre, and the Champagne fairs, turning ink into passage. Others maintain the engine is arithmetic, ledger offsets, triangular trades, and settlement days braided to feast calendars so rates hide behind saints. Fringe researchers insist insurance pools and currency rings deepened the current, letting fortunes move invisibly while sermons praised crusading zeal. Historians dispute which came first, piety or profit. Some whisper confraternities timed fasts to mask conversion spreads. Scholars remain divided over whether efficiency or quiet coercion set the clock. Yet the enigma endures. The hand that can clear a payment can also freeze it, and a paused transfer can tilt a crown. Lead cools around a papal bulla as it's pressed and lifted. In the half-light of a chancery room, a mailed figure kneels to kiss the seal, rises not toward battle but toward a desk stacked with rolls, keys at his belt, tallies at his elbow. The shock is quiet but absolute. A knight becomes treasurer, and sanctity becomes signature. Some claim it was simple necessity, privileges granting tax immunity, postal freedom and direct jurisdiction so money could move where armies could not. Fringe researchers insist the exemptions functioned like a proto-central bank, routing tithes through commanderies, bundling campaign purses, advancing them on crusade and recalling them at will. Others argue these were merely spiritual conveniences, a trust extended to an order vowed to poverty. Historians dispute who, if anyone, audited the auditor. Scholars still debate whether ledgers blessed with a cross changed anything or changed everything. Piety fronts the machine. Bless a book and you bless a war. Close a book and banners fall. Dusk settles in an archive that smells of linen and salt. Dust lifts like ash in the lamplight while a clerk pulls twine from a roll of parchment. And on the table a pinholed map shows roads stitched to ports as if scripture were sewn to shorelines. The paradox is unnerving. Victories trumpet steel, yet the timing of triumphs and collapses shadows columns of ink, as if parades marched to balances due and defeats arrived on settlement day. Economic historians say this is the rise of credit, administrative, inevitable, while theologians describe a practical dispensation that let vows meet logistics. Some believe it was merely accounting maturing under pressure. Others claim a coordinated calculus where charity disguised interest and rent paraded as absolution. Fringe researchers insist a ledgered empire stood behind banners routing tithes like arteries through commanderies and fairs. Pilgrims, meanwhile, whisper that miracles traveled faster when letters did. Scholars remain divided, and yet the mystery remains. Each holy march seems to shadow a silent transfer. Each laurel conceals a fee. Each fall traces a vanished entry.